Now, if you want to focus on the positives for Liverpool, well, 4 points in the last 2 games is certainly much better than what had preceded it. But, of course, Liverpool really do need to keep things going. They need to turn that into 7 points out of a potential 9 and probably put in a much better performance against Leeds United, really, if we are to think that they are starting at least to maybe turn a corner after the disastrous recent run. And as usual, we've been here at the AXA Training Centre to hear from Arne Slot ahead of that trip to Ellen Road this weekend, and I will start, as I always do, with the team news ahead of that one. Now, some good news for Liverpool, which is that Conor Bradley has trained all week and he is set to return to the squad against Leeds. I think that is a real boost. Of course, Joe Gomez has done a decent job at right back, but you do want someone like Conor Bradley back there to give you a bit more attacking impetus, another option there. And of course, you just can't play Joe Gomez in every game, can you, because of his injury record? So having another option there, particularly with Jeremy Frimpong not back for around a week or so yet, it's important to get Conor Bradley back, and I would say a boost to the squad. And another boost is that no further injuries as far as Arne Slot knows just yet from the midweek game. He said that Joe Gomez did sustain a slight knock against West Ham, but of course he was in the starting 11 against Sunderland. He was okay to play through that and managed to, he couldn't play the entire game, but he managed to play through it enough, and I would imagine he would be available for Leeds again. So interesting to see. Is Conor Bradley ready to come straight in? Does he have to go with Joe Gomez again? Is it maybe a job share because you want to manage Gomez's minutes? It'll be interesting to see what he does in that right back slot for this one. And on Mohamed Salah, of course, he was asked about that. 2 games consecutively on the bench, albeit he did come on at half-time against Sunderland, and so he was asked about the potential for him to come in for a start here and didn't give too much away on that one, as you would expect. This is typical of Arne Slot talking about anything, really. He said he's always in mind to start, given his quality. And want to move on now to around the team news, a question I get asked about in the comment section all the time. We get told that we never ask this, and I can tell you this is not the first time it's been asked this season, the first time it's been asked generally speaking, but he was asked again about Federico Chiesa and the possibility of him coming into the starting 11, and this is what he said. He said, every player has a possibility to start, but we have many options to start in his position. So again, as usual, which is why it's barely worth asking him about Federico Chiesa and his situation. I know there's a desperation for him to start, but he doesn't really give too much away. And he did give a bit of praise to Chiesa for his mentality, his ability to run back and stop that late Sunderland winner. He was obviously really, really pleased with that, but I'm still in a position here where I would just be surprised if he comes in to start this one. The manager clearly doesn't fancy him over his other options. He would argue, can you drop Alexander Isak for him? Is that a wise move when you spent so much and, you expect more from Isak? Can you drop Mohamed Salah, who's not been informed, but, well, he's dropped him, but he's had other options to play in that position. And on that left-hand side, obviously, he really likes Cody Gakpo. So it's an interesting debate. I just, knowing what we know about the manager and whether it's fair or not, I wouldn't be against Chiesa getting a start in a couple of those positions personally, but it still feels like it would be a surprise, doesn't it? But one thing I would say is he has addressed this in a press conference now. We do ask about it. That does happen, and we haven't really got much of an answer from the manager, unfortunately, on that one. And in terms of other team news, of course, I had a few calls for Cody Gakpo to be dropped, and he was dragged off at half-time. But one of the issues you have down that left-hand side, and this is something he was asked about, was a little bit of a lack of competition. Of course, last season it was Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo competing. It's not quite that at the moment. He was asked about a couple of his options there, and one of them, of course, is maybe Hugo Ekitike potentially playing off the left. And he said of that, the reason I haven't tried Hugo off the left too much is because of the Isak situation, either being available or not available to start. So clearly, because Isak's fitness isn't quite there, he always feels like he needs Ekitike on the bench to come and replace him. Now, as Isak gets fitter, and that's definitely happening at the moment, maybe we start to see a little bit more of Ekitike as an option in the starting 11 on that left-hand side. And if that happens, then that would maybe make Chiesa the next cab off the rank as the striker substitution. So we'll see what he does there. Maybe we're in that situation where that starts to happen. I certainly wouldn't be against seeing Ekitike off that left-hand side. And of course, the other option there is Rio Ngamoa, and the manager said of him, Rio has had his minutes, but already much more than any other 17-year-old in the Premier League. So that is positive. And I think That's possibly, fair enough, really, for him to say that around Rio. You do want to see more of him. He is exciting, but he is also a kid. He's only just recently turned 17, so I guess they've got to manage him. But then the fair question then is, are Liverpool as strong down the left-hand side as they were last season? And you would have to say, if Rio is the backup and he's not quite ready and you've got to manage him and be careful with him, that Liverpool aren't as strong down that left-hand side, particularly if he's wary about Ekitike being played there because he needs him off the bench as a striker. So maybe that will change. Maybe Liverpool will look stronger the moment Ekitike is available as a genuine option around that left-hand side, but we will have to see. At the moment, Gakpo not too much competition, and the manager did say that sometimes the players prefer having the confidence of knowing they're going to play regularly as well. So it's not always about competition, but we'll see. I think he needs to maybe up his performance levels, even if the numbers have been decent this season. And he was also asked today about Alexander Isak, a bit more about his kind of lack of involvement in games, which has been a real problem. It's something I've spoken about in post-match videos quite a lot, and actually the question, part of that was that he's had average 14 touches per game in his last 3. But the manager came back to that question with a question of his own, and I think it was quite an interesting one. He said, do you know how many he averaged at Newcastle per game? Just 22. So he said that, look, the point is really that strikers in the Premier League, they're generally not as heavily involved as you might expect them to be. You look at Erling Haaland at Manchester City, and it's pretty similar, in terms of a lack of involvement in the game, but he's scoring goals. And he said the thing he's most worried about is that when he is involved and he is getting his rare touches, that they're in areas where he can score the goals and make a difference for Liverpool. And again, I have to say that's probably a fair point, isn't it? I'm not necessarily massively interested, although Isak's touches probably do need to get nearer that 22 he was having at Newcastle, because he can drop in and link play and be involved in that way, and I would like to see a bit more of that. But what I think all of us would like to see a bit more is him being on the end of chances and Liverpool creating those chances, and Liverpool creating high quality, high XG chances for their £125 million striker, and that is just not happening enough at the moment. So I think that is Liverpool's big problem. He's not generally getting touches for Alexander Isak, but getting good touches in dangerous areas where he can really make a difference for them. So let's see if they can improve that going forward, starting with the Leeds game. I do think the West Ham game was an improvement on that, but Sunderland a bit of a step backwards. So let's see if they can build on that. And the final question really was around Harvey Elliott. Now, of course, he's in a difficult situation at Aston Villa at the moment. He joined them on a loan move initially with a buy option in there that would be triggered with a certain amount of appearances, but he's not getting anywhere near that. He's not been involved in a lot of squads recently, and he could return to the club in January, basically because Villa are saying that we're not going to give him the game time that means that he could trigger that option and that we won't buy him in the end. So of course, he can't go to a third club this season, having already represented 2. So the chances are that if he does come back, it'll just be an opportunity or an option for Liverpool for the remainder of the season. Of course, Arne Slot asked about that. He said, I've not spoken to him much except around when Villa played his former club, Feyenoord. And he said there's not much to say on it, unfortunately. It's something to ask Aston Villa with what they're thinking. But I have to say, my understanding around it and feeling around it at the moment is that there's a real big chance that Harvey Elliott returns to Liverpool in January. And hey, that could be a boost to the squad. It could be helpful to have him. But of course, Arne Slot didn't massively rely on him last season at all, did he? So, could be a step backwards for him. But if he can get more game time at Liverpool, even if it's very little, than he is at Aston Villa, and that wouldn't be difficult at all, then maybe that might be the better move for him. And then have a look in the summer in terms of getting him a move, because I think there's a cracking player there. But he's just rocked up at Aston Villa at the wrong time, and it's not quite worked out for him, has it? So, going to wrap it up there anyway and say, look, Leeds coming up at the weekend on Saturday. It's going to be a tough one. They are hitting form. I thought Liverpool might be coming up against a new manager bounce with Daniel Farke being sacked, but actually Leeds have put in the best 2 performances of the season so far, arguably, and narrowly being defeated by Man City and then beating Chelsea. So it just looks a tough game anyway. So I will be back for my post-match review. Hopefully we're talking about a rare Liverpool win, and maybe a decent performance would be nice as well. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts on all the talking points. If you can like and subscribe, I would hugely appreciate that, and I'll see you guys very soon.